This is Hannibal and Piper here from the HannibalTV.com with a daily wrestling news update for you. Raw did a 0.45 rating, which was actually better than SmackDown did recently. Their show last Friday only did 0.4 over on Fox. William Regal told the UK Metro that he will never wrestle again. Apparently, he's had some very serious neck problems that have finally caught up with them. Corey Graves, apparently on Raw last night, as I've reported in several posts on this channel, Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out on Raw, and I guess Corey Graves is a commentator, and he said during the commentary, quote, that they, quote, summarily and unprofessionally left the arena, end quote. And apparently this was likely a line that was fed to him over his headset as Graves' wife, Carmella, stuck up for him on Twitter for taking the company side on that and said, quote, imagine still living in a world where you think he's just saying whatever he wants, end quote. You know what's funny? The complete lack of kayfabe in wrestling now. Not only does WWE break it, but there's Carmella saying again too that the announcers are just saying what they're told. They're not even saying what they want. But yes, it is unprofessional to walk out on the job, no matter how crappy a job is, unless it's like doing something that really goes against your morals or is going to put you in severe bodily danger, because wrestling is really just acting, and just like any acting job, you got to do what they put in the script. And no time, by the way, have I ever done a paid wrestling job where I have never not done what's in the script, even when I've thought it was stupid, by the way. When I'm working for myself, it's a different story. Or when I'm sponsoring my own matches and I don't like what someone's telling me, if they're not paying me, they can go to hell. I'll just do whatever I want. But speaking of Sasha Banks, she was a guest on Cold as Balls with Kevin Hart, which was released recently, and I just watched it. And it's funny because I couldn't even make it through a couple minutes of the WWE Raw highlights because I couldn't even watch the highlights. They were just honestly boring the hell out of me. But I watched this entire Sasha Banks interview with Kevin Hart, which was 12 or 13 minutes. I had, as I've already said, seen Sasha's podcast with Logan Paul recently, and I heard her Austin podcast. And I thought she was very entertaining on this podcast. One interesting thing she said about coming up in the WWE, there was a fan that commented recently that the politics aren't what they used to be in wrestling, and I disagreed with that. And Sasha Banks said, quote, that there is, quote, always a knife around the corner, someone going to push you down the stairs, end quote, on your way up. And then she also said before she was NXT champion, a writer told her, quote, she was just a good hand, end quote. So that was motivation to her. She also talked about liking spicy foods in this, and she said that these foods, quote, give her, quote, scuttlebutt, end quote. I'm not making that up. She said that basically that spicy foods cause you to have diarrhea, but she likes eating them anyways. So she was giving out some real personal information. I have to say on this Kevin Hart interview that they were doing this in ice baths. The whole gimmick of the show is they're supposed to be in ice baths. But I have to say, after watching this, I don't believe those are real ice baths. I could be wrong, but they were just far too comfortable in those ice baths for it to have been real. I've been in a bunch of them. and it was almost like they reacted when they first got in, but then there was like no effect of the coldness on them. So I believe that might be a work. Corey, I've said this a bunch of times. Who my favorite wrestlers would have been? It would have been Macho Man, Undertaker, and Ric Flair. Would have been the three that would have been up there. Frank agrees that Raw, SmackDown, and WWE are so boring. It's pathetic. And I'm not saying this, guys. I really want to try and watch the highlights, but I'm so uninterested in it, and I value my time too much.